Of the many fearsome beasts and monsters that roam our land, there is none more curious or more deadly than he, Basilisk, known also as the king of serpents. The snake, which may reach gigantic size and live many hundreds of years, is born from a chicken's egg, hatched beneath a toad. Its methods of killing are most wondrous, for aside from its deadly and venomous fangs, the basilisk has a murderous stare, and all who are fixed with a beam of its eye shall suffer instant death. Spiders flee before the basilisk, for it is their mortal enemy, and the basilisk flees only from the crowing of the rooster, which is fatal to it. And beneath this, a single word had been written in a hand Harry recognized as Hermione's pipes. It was as though somebody had just flicked a light on in his brain. Ron, he breathed. This is it. This is the answer. The monster in the chambers, a basilisk, a giant serpent. That's why I have been hearing that voice all over the place and nobody else has heard it. Is because I understand parcel tongue. Harry looked up at the beds around him. The basilisk kills people by looking at them, but no one's died because no one looked it straight in the eye. Colin saw it through his camera. The basilisk turned up all the flame inside it, burned up all the flame inside it, but Colin just got petrified. Justin must have seen the basilisk through nearly headless Nick. Nick got the full blast of it, but he couldn't die again, and Hermione and that Ravenclaw prefect was found with a mirror next to them. Hermione had just realized the monster was a basilisk. I bet you anything she warned the first person she met to look around corners with a mirror first, and that girl pulled out her mirror, and Ron's jaw had dropped. And Mrs. Norris, he whispered eagerly. Harry thought hard, picturing the scene on the night of the Halloween. The water, he said slowly, the flood from Moaning Myrtle's bathroom. I bet you Mrs. Norris only saw the reflection. He scanned the page in his hand eagerly. The more he looked at it, the more it made sense. The basilisk flees only from the crowing of the rooster, which is fatal to it. He read aloud. Hagrid's roosters were killed. The heir of Slytherin didn't want one anywhere near the castle once the chamber was opened. Spiders flee before the basilisk. It all fits. But how's the basilisk been getting around the place? Said Ron, a giant snake someone would have seen. Harry, however, pointed at the word Hermione had scribbled at the foot of the page. Pipes, he said, pipes. Ron is been using the plumbing. I have been hearing that voice inside the walls. Ron suddenly grabbed Harry's arm. The entrance to the Chamber of Secrets, he said hoarsely. What if is a bathroom? What if it's in Moaning Myrtle's bathroom? Said Harry. They sat there, excitement coursing through them, hardly able to believe it. This means, said Harry, I can't be the only person mouth in the school. The heir of Slytherin's one too. That's how he's been controlling the basilisk. What are we going to do? Said Ron, whose eyes were flashing. Should we go straight to McGonagall? Let's go to the staff room, said Harry, jumping up. She will be there in 10 minutes. It's nearly break. They ran downstairs, not wanting to be discovered hanging around in another corridor. They went straight into the deserted staff room. It was a large paneled room full of dark wooden chairs. Harry and Ron paced around it, too excited to sit down, but the bell to signal break never came. Instead, echoing through the corridors came Professor McGonagall's voice, magically magnified. All students to return to their dormitories at once. All teachers return to the staff room immediately, please. Harry wheeled around to stare at Ron. Not another attack, not now. What will we do? Said Ron, aghast. Go back to the dormitory. No, said Harry, glancing around. There was an ugly sort of wardrobe to his left, full of teachers' clocks. In here, let's hear what it's all about. Then we can tell them what we have found out. They hid themselves inside it, listening to the rumbling of the hundreds of people moving overhead and the staff room door folds of the cloaks. They watched the teachers filtering into the room. Some of them were looking puzzled, others downright scared. Then Professor McGonagall arrived. It has happened, she told the silent staff room. A student has been taken by the monster right into the chamber itself. Professor Flitwick let out a squeal. Professor Sprout clapped her hands over her mouth. Snape gripped the back of a chair very hard and said, how can you be sure? The hair of Slytherin, said Professor McGonagall, who was very white, left another message. Right underneath the first one, her skeleton will lie in the chamber forever. Professor Flitwick burst into tears. Who is it? Said Madame Hooch, who had sunk weak-kneed into a chair. Which student? Ginny Weasley, said Professor McGonagall. Harry felt Ron slide silently down onto the wardrobe floor beside him. We shall have to send all the students home tomorrow, said Professor McGonagall. This is the end of Hogwarts, Dumbledore always said. The staff room door banged open again. For one wild moment, Harry was sure it would be Dumbledore, but it was Lockhart, and he was beaming. So sorry, dozed off. What have I missed? He didn't seem to notice that the other teachers were looking at him with something remarkably like hatred. Snape stepped forward. Just the man, he said, the very man. A girl has been snatched by the monster Lockhart, taken into the Chamber of Secrets itself. Your moment has come at last. Lockhart blanched. That's right, Gilderoy chipped in Professor Sprout. Weren't you saying just last night that you have known all along where the entrance to the chamber secrets is? I sputtered Lockhart. Yes, didn't you tell me you were sure you knew what was inside it? Piped up Professor Flitwick. Did I? I don't recall. I certainly remember you saying you were sorry you hadn't had a crack at the monster before Hagrid were arrested, said Snape. Didn't you say that the whole affair had been bungled and that you should have been given a free rein from the first? Lockhart stared around at his stony-faced colleagues. I really never, you may have misunderstood. We will leave it to you then, Gilderoy, said Professor McGonagall. Tonight will be an excellent time to do it. We will make sure everyone's out of your way. You will be able to tackle the monster by yourself. A free rein at last. Lockhart gazed desperately around him, but nobody came to the rescue. He didn't look remotely handsome anymore. His lip was trembling, and in the absence of his usually toothy grin, he looked weak-chinned and feeble. Very well, he said. I will be in my office getting ready. And he left the room. Right, said Professor McGonagall, whose nostrils were flared. That's got him out from under our feet. The heads of houses should go and inform their students what has happened. Tell them the Hogwarts Express will take them home first thing tomorrow. Will the rest of you please make sure no students have been left outside their dormitories? The teachers rose and left one by one. It was probably the worst day of Harry's entire life. He, Ron, Fred, and George sat together in a corner of the Gryffindor common room, unable to say anything to each other. Percy wasn't there. He had gone to send an owl to Mr. and Mrs. Weasley, then shut himself up in his dormitory. No afternoon ever lasted as long as that one, nor had Gryffindor Tower ever been so crowded, yet so quiet. Near sunset, Fred and George went up to bed, unable to sit there any longer. She knew something, Harry, said Ron, speaking for the first time since they had entered the wardrobe in the staff room. That's why she was taken. It wasn't some stupid thing about Percy at all. She did found out something about the Chamber of Secrets. That must be why she was. Ron rubbed his eyes frantically. I mean, she was pure. She was a pure blood. There can't be any other reason. Harry could see the sun sinking blood red below the skyline. This was the worst he had ever felt. If only there was something they could do anything. Harry, said Ron, do you think there is any chance at all she is not? Harry didn't know what to say. He couldn't see how Ginny could still be alive. Do you know what? Said Ron. I think we should go and see Lockhart. Tell him what we know. He's going to try and get into the chamber. We can tell him where we think it is and tell him it's a basilisk in there. Because Harry couldn't think of anything else to do, and because he wanted to be doing something, he agreed. The Gryffindors around them were so miserable and felt so sorry for the Weasleys that nobody tried to stop them as they got up, crossed the room, and left through the portrait hole. Darkness was falling as they walked down to Lockhart's office. There seemed to be a lot of activity going on inside it. They could hear scraping thumbs and hurried footsteps. Harry knocked, and there was a sudden silence from inside. Then the door opened the tiniest crack, and they saw one of Lockhart's eyes peering through it. Oh, Mr. Potter, Mr. Weasley, he said, opening the door a bit wider. I'm rather busy at the moment. If you would be quick. Professor, we have got some information for you, said Harry. We think it will help you. Well, it's not terribly. The side of Lockhart's face that could see looked very uncomfortable. I mean, well, all right. He opened the door and they entered. His office had been almost completely stripped. Two large trunks and stood open on the floor. Robes, jade green, lilac, midnight blue, had been hastily folded into one of them. Books were jumbled untidily into the other. The photographs that had covered the walls were now crammed into boxes on the desk. Are you going somewhere? Said Harry. Well, yes, said Lockhart, ripping a life-size poster of himself from the back of the door as he spoke and starting to roll it up. Urgent call, unavoidable, got to go. What about my sister? Said Ron jerkily. Well, as to that, most unfortunate, said Lockhart, avoiding their eyes as he reached open a drawer and started emptying the contents into a bag. No one regrets more than I. You are the defense against the dark arts teacher, said Harry. You can't go now, not with all the dark stuff going on here. Well, I must say, when I took the job, Lockhart muttered, now piling socks on top of his robes. Nothing in the job description didn't expect. You mean you are running away? Said Harry disbelievingly. After all that stuff you did in your books? Books can be misleading, said Lockhart delicately. You wrote them, Harry shouted. My dear boy, said Lockhart, straightening up and frowning at Harry. Do you use your common sense? My books wouldn't have sold half as well if people didn't think I did done all those things. No one wants to read about some ugly old Armenian warlock even if he did save a village from werewolves. He did look dreadful on the front cover, no dress sense at all, and the witch who banished the abandoned banshee had a cherry hairy hen. I mean, come on. So you have just been taking credit for what a load of other people have done, said Harry incredulously. Harry, said Lockhart, shaking his head impatiently. It's not nearly as simple as that. There was work involved. I had to track these people down, ask them exactly how they managed to do what they did. Then I had to put a memory charm on them so they wouldn't remember doing it. If there is one thing I pride myself on is my memory charms. No, it's been a lot of work, Harry. It's not all book signings and publicity photos, you know. You want fame, you have to be prepared for a long hard slog. He banged the lids of his trunk shut and locked them. Let's see, he said. I think that's everything. Yes, only one thing left. He pulled out his wand and turned to them.